Frugalsim videos are powered by Jetline Systems.
Hello YouTube, this is Frugal, and of course this is the Pmdg DC6 Cloudmaster in Microsoft Flight Simulator. A couple of weeks ago I did tutorial flight 1. Now the Pmdg aircraft ships with a ton of documentation, but also 2 tutorial flights. I did flight 1 showing how the automatic flight engineer works and just simple GPS navigation between airports. I'm going to do tutorial 2 today. I've not flown this before. I've not done this tutorial route before, so bear with me if I mess things up. But in tutorial flight 2, you're still using the automatic flight engineer, which is, to be honest with you, more realistic than you managing everything on your own, because in a real aircraft you would have a flight engineer doing a lot of this stuff for you, so that's cool. But we are also not going to be using the GPS, which is a lot more realistic for this aircraft. We're going to be doing a VOR to VOR flight from Seattle, where we landed in the last flight, up to Vancouver, about an hour long in full again, just like last time. But we need to do some configuration before anything else can happen. So I'm going to click on ready to fly. God, it looks good, doesn't it? Here we are in the cockpit. So the first thing first, close these menus actually, and then the second thing, drop on down here to the options. We're going to turn off the GPS. So somewhere here, there we go, options. What we're going to be doing is using the Pmdg Bendix radios, i.e. no GPS. Click. So with that done, we no longer have GPS's. If I go to my view that GPS's are normally in, what we have instead is a bunch of radios. No GPS at all, everything very, very old school. So the next thing that needs to happen is we need to go and set up some fuel. We'll pop on down here, go to the fuel load manager. We're going to set 50%, just like last time. It's a relatively short flight. We don't need 100%. We do have some cargo and passengers going, apparently. So what I need to do now, just reading the thing, is hold my mouse cursor over the top half of the cargo text field. Where's the cargo text field? Oh, here it is. Over the top. Oh, look at that. And I can click to scroll. So I'm going to put in 75%. Gosh, 1, 2. No, that's actually full. Good job, Pete. Oh, you need to scroll it. Click to fill. Scroll to increase. So 25, 50, 75% full. You can actually see the aircraft move as you do that, which is kind of cool. Now we're going to go over the passengers, and we're going to load up with 75% of passengers, so 51 passengers. So 1, 2, 3, and again you see the aircraft kind of bounce as we do that. Now, as you can already hear, the aircraft is in a cold and dark state. We are going to start the aircraft with the help of the AFE. To get things moving, though, we need to go to the ramp manager and connect the ground power unit. So click on ramp manager, and you can see ground power unit, it says, is actually already attached. We can check that by going to the overhead, such as it's not working. Hang on. I don't have views set up for the overhead because I never needed to use them before. I actually use a Razor Orb Weaver for all my views, which makes setting brand new views an absolute dream. So let me just set some new views. So obviously all these dials and gauges here are actually pretty useful if you're flying the aircraft properly. So I'm going to lock that in as a new view. And then up here we have the battery switches and the engines and all that good stuff. What? So I just need to move it around a little bit. Go to the right, and I'm going to set that up as a new view. So now I can quickly jump to those dials and the overhead. Right. So to check whether or not the GPU is connected, we need to go to the ground, the plane battery switch here. If we press this button, it will light up if ground power is available, which it is. So given that ground power is available, we can switch over to ground power, and that light comes on permanently. With all that done, down to the tablet again, go over to our AFE and tell him to run the before start checks.
Cockpit pre-flight.
And off he goes. Check that out. Flicking all the switches and doing everything he needs to be doing.
Completed.
Completed.
Voice recorder. Before start checks complete. Start engines.
So there is a specific order to start the engines. The order that we're doing is 3, 4, 2, 1. So engine 3, then 4, then 2, then 1. Notice he's already set mixture rich on engine 3. We'll need to do that in future for the other engine. So to start the engine, this is why I set up those new views. If we go to the overhead here, you can see a bunch of switches. Here's the engine selector already on switch 3, and you can see that booster pump for engine 3 has been set to low. Next, we need to go to the start safety switch here and flick it. He'll then count to 12, and when he hits 12, we need to press the boost button here and then prime. So
3, 6, 9, 12.
And we're up. The switches should return to normal now. I think we could turn the booster pump off. Next, engine 4. So we turn this to the right. Engine 4, low on the booster. And do the same thing once again. So hit start.
3, 6, 9, 12.
And then boost and prime. Did that go? Let's look outside and find out. Nope. Back to the cockpit we go. Oh, you know why? Let me tell you for why. I'm going to leave this in. I could have edited this out, but I'm not going to. I'm going to turn all these switches are reset back to normal, which is all good. So I'm going to put this switch off. I'm going to turn this all the way back to off. The reason it didn't start is we didn't set mixture rich on engine 4. He does the first one. We need to do the subsequent ones. So here's engine 4's mixture. Whoop, wrong one. We're going to whack that all the way up to auto rich. Now it will work. So back on the overhead, switch this all the way over to engine 4. My bad, I'm glad I messed that up. It's a learning curve, right? Engine 4, and then we'll click on start.
3, 6, 9, 12.
Boost, prime. Nope. Oh, more things missed. God, what an idiot. So, let me start this all over again, right? You need to go on engine 4. I know some of you are already screaming this probably in the comments or in your heads. Don't put it in the comments, I know what's wrong. Engine 4, boost low. Engine selector for both mags, please. Duh. Just like a Cessna, click on start.
3, 6, 9, 12.
Boost, prime. That's better. Hear that? Wait for him to deal with the switches. Which they all now are. We can turn that boost off. We can switch onto the plane battery now as the power instead of ground power. Like so. Now we can go ahead and remove the GPU. We don't need it. We have engines running, providing power to the aircraft. So, fuel ramp manager, bye-bye GPU. That's gone away. Back on up to the top now, and we can repeat the process for engine 2, then engine 1. So, I'm going to turn the selector back to 2. We'll pop on down here. We'll turn the mixture to auto rich for engine 2. Pop on up the top. Magneto is for engine 2 onto both, like so. Engine 2 boost pump into the low position. Click on start.
3, 6, 9, 12.
Boost, prime. That just roared into life. Once he's reset the switches, we'll go back and do engine 1. So we're all good. Engine 1. Back down to here. Mixture auto rich on engine 1. It's an auto lean. Good job the engine started anyway. Up here, engine 1. The both. Make sure we're all set, which we're not. That and that. Start. front. Amazing. Okay, back on up to the overhead, wait for these switches to reset. Turn off the boost. I'm not entirely sure I should be turning off the boost, but I will. Engine selector off. With that done, all the engines are now running, so we can do the after start checks.
Start selective boost pumps.
And I will read what Pmdg say about our takeoff briefing. So, when you're using the artificial flight engineer to prevent the hardware throttle you have interfering with the AFE, leave it at the auto stop, so we don't touch the throttle.
Emergency lights.
Once we get ready for takeoff, we're going to hold the brakes in position while the AFE sets takeoff power. We will be using a wet takeoff for this takeoff because we're over 87,000 pounds of grace weight. Once we begin, we'll only begin rolling after the AFE confirms full power has been set, and we're going to rotate at 100 knots. We're going to climb out at 130 knots, then pitch over slightly at about 500 feet to reach 140 knots, at which point the AFE will retract the flaps and set METO, or maximum accept takeoff power. When the flaps are retracted, we'll need to apply a little bit of back pressure to keep on climbing. The AFE will then set climb power and run the after takeoff checks, and we'll be climbing out at 165 knots. So, now the AFE's completed his after start checks, it's time for us to push back and taxi to the holding point of runway 34 right. I'm going to use the built-in sim method of doing that, which is to press Shift P. So I'm actually going to go to an external camera so we can see what's going on here. External. Gosh, that's loud. And Shift P. Alright, and we're done. We're all pushed back. Gosh, that was stressful. So, what it's saying to us now is release the parking brake, advance the throttles and turn to the right, or the south, and start taxiing. We're going to be taxiing via Lima, Mike, November, Papa, Quebec, and Sierra out to runway 34 right or 16 left. And it also says in the tutorial that during the taxi, go ahead and set up your radio and instruments. So I'm going to do that right now, actually. So we need to go ahead up to the radio stack here. We're going to set nav 1 to a frequency of 110.6, which is the PAE or Papa Alpha Echo VOR DME. 0.6 110. I nudged that a little bit. 110.6, and we're going to set nav 1 standby to 115.9, which is the Yankee Victor Romeo VOR. So 0.9 here. $115.9. That's in the standby. We're going to set the course now to 344. So back down here. There's the VOR here. For VOR 1, that should be 344. Which I'm having a real hard time finding. Hang on. There we go. 344. Now we can taxi out to the runway. So back up here, we'll release the parking brake, hold the toe brakes on if you have rudder pedals. Parking brakes off. We are actually nudging forward here. There we go. We'll turn to the right and taxi out. As I said, it should be Lima, Mike, November, Papa. Actually, I'm not sure if the tutorial has us in the right place, because it looks like we're kind of there. Doesn't need a lot of power to get this thing moving. It will actually move on idle, which is where I have it right now. Yeah, we are there. 34 right is right there. So we're going to turn here. Okay, and here's our holding point. So we'll just come up here, apply the brakes gently, and squeak to a stop. Shaking out the passengers in the back a little bit because I was a little too rough. Okay, next up we're going to taxi onto the runway center line, set the parking brake, and then tell the AFE the kind of takeoff that we want. So let's do that. A little bit of power. Now again, we're going to set takeoff wet. The reason being that we're over 87,000 pounds with fuel, cargo, and passengers on board. So we need that little extra nudge of power. Probably should have turned off the traffic, not to worry. Get lined up. Off the power. Gently stop. Much better stop, Pete. We're going to come on down here to the AFE and get ready to tell him take it. Well, we'll do before takeoff actually. Let's do that.
Boost pumps. Boost pumps on low. Fuel selector and crossfeed. Main tanks and crossfeed off. Autopilot and carb heat. Off and cold. Hydraulic system. Down, forward, pressure and quantity checked. Okay. Flaps 20.
There's our flap position there.
Flaps set 20. Windows and turbine. Closed and on. Controls. Gust lock released. Free. Potato. On. Mixture and cowl flaps. Reach unlocked. Set. Transponder. On. Landing lights. Extended and on. Before takeoff checks complete.
Okay, so with all that done, let's tell the AFE wet takeoff. Let him set maximum power first before we release the parking brake.
Water injection.
There's another aircraft on the runway here as well.
30 inches stabilize. 30 inches stabilize. Stabilized. Cowl flaps. Cowl flaps. Cowl flaps set. Full power, please. Going full power. Full power set.
Alright, here we go. Keep the aircraft lined up on the runway. Looking for about 100 knots. There's 80. Out of 130, remember?
Nice rig, gear up. Gear selected up.
A little bit of trim now.
Gear up, lights out.
There's that 500 feet, so we'll bring the nose down to 140.
Flaps up. Flaps going up.
Once the flaps are up, we'll pitch to climb at 165. Flaps are up.
Meter power. Setting meter power 48 inches, 2600 RPM.
Up we go. We want to hold 165 in the climb, but we're going to use the autopilot. So just setting trim here to try to maintain 165, which is right about there. We'll look on down here.
Power set.
Gyro pilot on.
Power. Setting climb power.
Mixture auto rich. And now we're going to control our speed with the climb wheel here. So a little bit more climb, please. And up we go. So now we're going to use the AP turn knob to turn to a heading of 344.
Set. After takeoff checklist, please.
So we're going to the right a little bit.
After takeoff checks complete.
Which is probably about there. Center. Right, now we're going to turn the AP pilot, AP mode knob to localizer. Here. Click. To intercept the localizer, and that will track PAE, VOR. And the needles should get centered, which they currently kind of are. And we'll follow that. We'll keep on climbing at about 165 until we reach 8,000 feet, at which point we'll reduce our rate of climb. And then engage altitude hold. Now we can see our distance to this VOR down here. Let me pop on down there a little bit and you can get a better view. We're currently 20 miles away and reducing. Just check we haven't missed anything down here. Nope. We'll run the cruise checks in a little while. We're not quite ready to do that yet. 19.5 miles to go. Still climbing. We are a little bit slow on our climb, so down to the autopilot, click this forward once. There we go. That should help us pick up a bit of speed. And it has. Yeah, not enough though. Back down here, let's do 2 or 4. That's better. 15 miles to go. Hopefully we can get up to 8,000 before PAE. And let the aircraft settle on the outbound course from PAE, which is going to be 329. I'll show you how to do that. What we're going to do is basically, look down here on the autopilot. We're currently in localizer mode. Gyro pilot stabilizes the wings for level flight. Or sorry, straight flight, not level flight. So as we near PAE, we're going to switch this to gyro pilot, which holds us on course. Then we'll come back up here, set the new course of 329 here. And then once we get close enough to intercept that radial, we'll pop on back down here and turn on localizer mode again. Wow. Interesting that it says Pmdg Classics there, implying there's more to come. I wonder if a DC-3 is in the future. There's 7007, 7008. At 7009 we'll reduce our rate of climb. Now. And at 8,000 feet, altitude hold. 8,000. Now we'll start to pick up some speed. We will set up the OBS to go on that different radial at this point. So pop on down here. As I said, gyro pilot here. Up here we want to go 329. Like so. Now keep an eye on the distance. So watching this needle now as well. 3.5 miles to go. And about 1.5 to 2 miles, we'll switch on localizer again. There it goes. It started to move, I think. Localizer. Got it. No, that needle did a full bounce, didn't it? How far have we got to go? We're flying away from it now, and it's not intercepted, which is odd. Localizer. There we go. Alright, so with all that done, AFE, cruise checklist.
Set cruise power, please. Setting cruise power.
And we're in the cruise now. What we need to do now is wait for a specific waypoint, which is Bezov. Now, obviously, we're not using the GPS, so we can't monitor the fix on the GPS. Looking at charts, though, which Pmdg did in writing their tutorial, they note that Bezov is about 38 miles away from PAE. We're currently 12 miles and increasing from PAE, but at Bezov, what we're going to do is switch the autopilot back into gyropilot, change the nav frequencies up here to that YVR Yankee Victor Romeo nav, and then set a different course, which is 295. We'll also begin our descent at that point. Now, they've actually said, in terms of calculating where to turn, if we're going to switch to gyropilot and a course hold of... switch to gyropilot and remain on this course, at what point do we need to turn? Well, they say a common rule of thumb for leading turns is 0.5% of your ground speed for a 90-degree turn. Since our turn is going to be 30 degrees, we will take half of that as a conservative simple figure. So for us, it's about 50% of 1.1. We should begin the turn to 295 when we're 49 miles DME from PAE. I didn't understand a word of that, I'll be completely frank with you, but I'll follow the tutorial. I think in future when I fly this, I'm going to be very, very modern and fly using the GPS. It's a lot easier. But when we do start that turn, 49 miles out from PAE, we're also going to start our descent, a 500 foot per minute descent just before the turn. So that's it for part 1 of this look at tutorial 2 in the mighty DC-6 Cloudmaster from Pmdg. Stay tuned for part 2. When we hit that Bezov waypoint, we run through everything necessary to descend and land in Vancouver. As always, my name is Frugal. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you all very soon.